Good day, and welcome to episode 34 of the Aaron Wayne podcast. If I can be frank with you, I'm recording this intro before I do the podcast, and I don't really know what this podcast is going to be about. I got a couple notes, but my camera's charging, and I figured I might as well utilize this time because my wife's cooking dinner in the back of the van, I'm taking the podcast in the front of the van, and my camera's still charging, so might as well use what I got. I don't know. Let's see what's coming up in this podcast. Here we go. All right. If you're seeing this on YouTube, this looks like a hostage video. I'm filming this podcast, recording this podcast in the front of the van. We were parked in a Walmart in the middle of South Carolina. We have finally made it back to the East Coast, and my lady made some dinner, and it's Sunday night, and I gotta get a podcast out tomorrow. And not only that, my battery on my camera, it's probably gonna die. But I'm going to record this podcast anyway. I didn't charge anything because, I don't know, that's not interesting. But I'm in the front in a Walmart parking lot. If I look over my shoulder, there's a truck driver. If I look past the camera, there's a dude wandering around a camper. Is it his? I don't know. Is it his camper? I don't know. So, yeah, hope you guys are doing well. I'm trying to keep the volume at a moderate level because Katie's in the back having some curry, watching probably Gilmore Girls. That's all she watches. But, man, we had a drive today. And the last, 4 days, we were in South Dakota, 3 days ago. And just been doing, 10-hour days every day since that faithful night when we left South Dakota. And now we're in the East, which is cool. It's kind of cool to be back. On the East Coast. It's definitely a different climate, and now I remember why every summer we go to the West, because the heat out west, it could be 115 outside, but you just open the windows, stay in the shade, and have a fan running, and you're totally fine. If it's 82 degrees in the South or in the East, the humidity just makes it unbearable. It's insanely hot, and I'm not super into it, but I love... Sorry for yelling at you. I love the South. It's kind of nice being back in the South. I've noticed that while we've been traveling, because I've been spending 24 hours a day for the last 2 months with my wife. I love my wife, but she's the only one I talk to. So it's like every stranger I meet, it becomes my best friend. They become my best friend. And I'd start conversations with random people for no reason. Today, I was getting gas today. And this guy, I was fixing things on the back of my bike, or the bike rack on the back of the van, and this guy was like, he said something. He's like, oh, they look kind of askew or whatever. And I was like, let's talk. Will you be my best friend? I couldn't understand a word this guy was saying, but I talked to him for 10 minutes, and I would just talk, and then he would say something. He wanted to talk to me. I noticed him as soon as I pulled up because he was pumping gas and he was smoking a cigarette. That's something you only see in random small town in North Carolina or Kentucky. I have no idea where I was, but he's smoking a cigarette. It's like, dude, when I pulled up, I thought to myself, is that guy smoking a cigarette? And I was like, no, there's no way. And then I got out of the van to fill up my gas tank, which is dude, the disparity between gas prices in this country is insane. I was spending $5.60 a gallon in parts of California. That's almost twice the price. But I start pumping my gas, and I'm like, no, he's smoking a cigarette right now. Just he does it all the time. He's been getting away with this for decades. My mom's calling right now. I'll have to call her back. It's just he's gotten away with this for too long. Hasn't even had a scare where he just smokes a cigarette, flicks an ash on the ground, a little, not like a pile of gasoline catches on fire, but a little drop. And you spill gas when you pump gas, you're spilling gas on the ground. Where's that go? It ends up in the rivers. That's pretty cool. But so this guy hasn't had a scare ever. He's just been doing it, super casual about it. He was talking to me as if this was cool, and I let it go because I need a friend. I need someone to talk to other than my dogs and my wife, and listening to an insane amount of podcasts. I ran out of all my podcasts, all of them. Not my own. Actually, in fact, I started listening to my own podcast 2 nights ago. I did a drive from call it 9 in the morning until about 2 or 3 a.m. because we were a day behind and we needed to get our oil change. That's how many miles we've driven. We need to get oil change. Full synthetic. Come on, your boy's not cheap. Though I don't make a lot of money. Full synthetic, so that's like 8,000 miles. So I had to get an oil change in the middle of the trip. So, why is that interesting? I don't know. I was just driving like crazy. Our window's broken. I'll talk about that on the next podcast with Katie. Katie and I are going to do a podcast together. We got one more. We're going to wrap up the summer together. And I'm going to let you tell her how the window got broken. But yeah, man, we're back in the South. You can definitely tell when you're back in the South because you start seeing a lot more Confederate flags, if I'm being honest. It's all some Confederate flags. You notice that? Like, being someone from the South, I mean, Virginia's the South, but it's not like deep South, but it's definitely the South, man. It's like, it feels like the South. The people are Southern, and, I feel like I'm from the South. And you see Confederate flags, like, just driving around, and you're like, every time I see one, I'm like, oh, that person, it would take a little while for us to come to common ground on political beliefs. Though I could be friends, like, it's like, we can be nice people to each other. Like, I'm not one of those people, but we can be nice to each other. But it would be hard for us to share many, worldviews. But you see that, and you're just driving around, you're going to Panera Bread or something, and you see, like, oh, there's a American flag and a Confederate flag flying in the back of that guy's pickup truck. And that just becomes so casual and, like, normalized, which is like a longer conversation that I'm only doing a 30-minute podcast, so I'm not going to dive deep into that today. But when you go out west, like, you don't see that. So when I come back to the South, and I'm like, oh yeah, people do that still. It's like, oh, they just do that. That's a thing. But here and now, I have to say, I've had conversations with 2 people I can think of off the top of my head, because everybody's my best friend when I travel, that they said underlying, not racist, but like things that was like, oh, well, if I dug deeper, you might give me different beliefs. Like, just veiled things. Like, hey, if you go there, like, there's a lot of people, and, it's kind of a dangerous place. And they say those, like, I've had a couple of those conversations, just like random coffee shops. And they were in places like Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's the first one that I think of. And then other places, Oregon. I had a conversation with somebody in Oregon. And so it's like, the South. Look up my podcast called Vegan Biscuits and Gravy, and I dive deeper into these concepts of, like, the South gets a really bad rap for being backwards, but then you go to other places, and if you've actually traveled this country and really explored this country, you realize why there was such divisiveness in the last and previous political or presidential campaigns. You see it way more clearly. Dude, we were at a place outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which was beautiful, man. We spent some time in the Tetons, and Katie and I'll talk about that together when she and I do our wrap-up podcast. But we spent some time in the Tetons, and we stayed at a campground, and we drove past somebody who said they had a flag flying in, like, those well-known, well-branded, honestly, if Trump's done anything, he knows how to brand, the well-branded flag that said something to the effect of 2020 was a fraud, and then I've seen 2024 Trump, and, like, I'm not, you want to vote for Trump, do your thing. Maybe I did. Did I? Some of my friends think different things about me saying that. Some of them are like, oh, he's totally joking. Other than, like, he's joking, but it's a veiled joke because he really did vote for him. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let y'all figure it out. I kind of like that people don't necessarily know that about me. But nonetheless, we look at the South and we're like, all these uneducated white men voted for this person that we abhor. And in the South, and we don't realize, there's so many people all over the country that have very peculiar beliefs about the way society should be structured. I'm off on a tangent. Get back to the notes, Rico. Van life in the East. I wrote that down. I don't use the term van life, but that's what I wrote down. Maybe I do. Sometimes I do. But dude, camping in the East, I've stayed the last 3 nights in either a Walmart or a Cracker Barrel. And then when I'm you get west of the Mississippi and it's totally different. I'm camping in beautiful spots. Like when we were in the Tetons, which Katie and I'll talk about, we had the illest camp spot. Just a beautiful view of the Tetons. We were parked next to this cool couple who she was going to grad school to like get her law degree. Her undergrad was in like racial justice and something else. I don't know. It was just like interesting conversation, interesting people, interesting place. And now I'm parked in front of a Walmart. Hopefully my headlights are on. Hold on. My car's running because I want the AC because it's so humid here. But yeah, man, van life in the East is totally different. It's like you can't find a spot. And in the summertime, it's prohibitive because we don't have an AC in the back. We just have fans that run the air. And even if it's 95 degrees outside in the middle of the desert, it's still more comfortable being in the back without the humidity. Whatever. These notes are terrible. Why did I write these notes? South Carolina. South Carolina is cool. South Carolina is like, if you're from South Carolina, no offense. And you can't take offense because I said no offense. If you're from South Carolina, I'm sure it's a lovely state. I'm sure I've just explored certain parts of it. Actually, I worked at a summer camp that was really cool. It was in a place called Mountain Rest, South Carolina. I worked in a summer camp for a summer, and it was a fairly transformative experience for me. It was a really cool experience. I met some cool people that I keep in touch with online, and it was really cool to, that was my like not parlay. It was like my sort of like, I don't know. Parlay sounds like dancing into a scene, but it's not. Parlay is like connecting this to this to this. I don't know. I'm gonna say parlay, and I want you to redefine the word parlay for me, which means dancing into a scene. And not dancing, but like, I'm not against dancing. I love dancing. But sort of parlaying my way into prancing? No. I don't know. I wanted to figure out if I wanted to work with kids. And that was like the most straightforward way to figure out if taking an undergrad in English literature would apply to my skill set of working with people. Would I want to teach kids? So I spent the whole summer in South Carolina teaching kids. I taught guitar for a while, which I'm not very good at, but I know enough to teach an 11-year-old how to play 3 chords that they can't figure out in 2 weeks. And then I actually taught horseback riding, which is bizarre that they ended up letting me teach horseback riding because I've never ridden a horse before going to work at this summer camp, but they let me do it. And when I say they let me do it, I mean like I was holding the reins while kids were walking around a penned up area. As an animal advocate, I don't know how to feel about this now, but because they were very sad horses. But it was a legit size ring. It was a real, like, I don't know if it's show length. It's not like a track around a football field, but I was walking the kids around decent perimeter, circumference, whatever. You can tell I've been driving for a lot today, and I haven't really talked much. Katie's been watching How I Met Your Mother for the millionth time, and I've just been listening to podcasts of people ranting about bizarre things. And so I'd walk these kids around the track, and they let me do it. But really it was just like, pull the reins slightly to the left, and the horse will go to the left. Give them a gentle kick against the ribs. Like, that's a weird thing. That's how we teach horses how to move. It's just like, kick them in the ribs. It'll go faster. Just keep kicking him. What? But yeah, man, South Carolina, that was a good experience for me. I learned how to wakeboard, which was really cool and way harder than you think it is. I used to skateboard when I was younger. I ski. Wakeboarding is an entirely different beast. wakeboarding is like being, if you skateboard, it's like being at the bottom of the last 75% of a hill that you're bombing. You start out real slow, first 25%. You're like, all right, here we go. Next 25%. You're like, I'm getting fast. The next 25%, I'm not throwing. The third quarter, I don't know. Think quarters. This is the worst podcast ever. The third quarter, you're like, I'm going too fast and I might kill myself. And then the last quarter, hopefully you've like planned your hill properly and you kind of gradually mellow out instead of going through traffic. Dude, I remember one time I was in college and I was big into longboarding, not skateboarding, in college. I went down this hill. I went down a hill and there was a fork. You can go left and you could just like carve these like big swooshing carves through a parking lot. Or you could stay on that it was a side road, but like the main stretch of that road, and you go down another hill and you bomb that after like kind of a landing on steps. So first hill, go down it. Sort of a landing where you can make a decision to go left into the parking lot and carve, or stay on the road, and then you go back down another hill. And I took the second hill once and didn't realize that there was a stop sign with blind corners. And so I was cruising. Like, it was way too fast to jump off and run. And I made like a split second decision to just like bomb through the stop sign. The end of the story is that I'm here doing a podcast with you and I didn't die and get T-boned by a car. Totally possible I could have. What was I talking about? South Carolina. South Carolina is a state where, again, no offense if you're from South Carolina or you live in South Carolina, but in my experience, South Carolina is a state where, at least the coastal part, people are like, I'd love to go to Florida. I hear it's nice. And then they're like, but we only have $214. Let's go to South Carolina instead. It's like people are like, I hear it's really nice in Cabo. I will just go to South Carolina instead. Can you hear Katie back there? What are you doing back there?
Sorry.
So quiet. Just messing with you, babe. You want to come do the podcast with me?
No, I'm good.
She doesn't want to do the podcast with me. It's been a long day. Long day of driving. I don't know how people do this for a living. Elon Musk and all the technologists say that driverless cars are just going to create fleets of semis. I do not wish the career of driving for a living. I don't wish that on anybody. I've been doing, a full day of work is 8 hours. That's the standard American proto. You didn't follow proto. Standard American proto is 8 hours a day. And I've been doing, more or less that. I've probably averaged out to that. Like, I've had a couple 11-hour days, a couple 6.5-hour days. Probably averages out to around 8.5 hours of actual driving, let alone the fact that Katie and I have to stop every hour for both of us to go to the bathroom because we drink way too much water while we drive. But, my back, dude, I have numbness when I drive in my right knee. That's going to be a bad sign. That means I'm compressing discs and preventing proper neural connections because my spine is collapsing in on itself. And I'm fit and healthy and flexible. I could not imagine what a career. They make more than I do, truck drivers. I could not imagine what it would be like to do that for every day. I mean, first of all, it's got to be incredibly boring because I ran through all my podcasts and was just letting YouTube run through random clips. I did that in 3 days. And then I started listening to my own podcast like a crazy person. I don't know. You should probably listen to your own podcast if you do a podcast so you can figure out what you're doing right and doing wrong. But just my back, I don't know. You don't want to hear me complain. I'm 32. Dude, I turned 33 here in a couple months. How about that? October 5th, 1988. Give me a call. Let me know it's my birthday. I'll probably remember that it's my birthday, but the long drives really mess up my back, mess up my hips. I don't know. That's not interesting for you. Yeah, Camp Chattooga. That was pretty cool. I guess I just shouted them out on the podcast, but whatever. I have I have a couple of Google accounts, one for work, one for yoga work, my yoga business, and then one like personal account. And the podcast popped up on my personal account on YouTube. It just suggested it to me, probably because they know that I'm linked with that account somehow. And it got a whole mess of views, and I was like, why are people watching this? So I rewatched it, and it's called Corporations Aren't Woke, and it just like had average performance on all my like other streaming services, but on YouTube it just like blew up overnight. I was like, why are people watching this? I was like, oh, the title. The title's interesting. And Katie and I had a conversation after I listened to it. It's like a quick 30-minute. She and I had a conversation about the ideas in that. Because I'm a smart boy and I have smart ideas, and everybody needs to hear them. That's why I have a podcast. Not only do I have a podcast, but I do it in the front seat of my car, like I'm on a ISIS video, talking straight to the camera on a battery that's about to die, because I gotta get it out tomorrow. Dedicated to the cause. We're going to do another one. I was thinking I might have my brother on. I think that would be an interesting conversation because he's a big personality, very talkative. Be interesting to have that like in the mix. But he'd probably get nervous. This is the thing I've noticed doing podcasts with people. The first podcast interview I ever did, I was nervous. And then after that, it's just like super easy, like very straightforward for me. But I've just noticed that, people, it takes them like 10 minutes to feel comfortable just talking, especially if there's a camera. If there's a camera involved, it's like totally falls off the rails. So I'd love to have a genuine, like real conversation with my brother and kind of just see, what's cracking like this windshield. I'm just looking at this windshield, and I'm not going to tell you how it happened, but it's going to cost me about $1,000. It's a pretty chunk of change. Thinking about buying a bunch of properties, becoming a slumlord. Because that's the YouTube rabbit hole that my algorithm took me down. Buy a house, rent it out. I'm like, I don't make a lot of money. Might be a good long-term play. But do I want to be a slumlord? Landlord? What do they call them? Slumlord? I could be either. Depends on how I treat my tenants, I reckon. Or if I call them tenants. What would a slumlord call their tenants? A landlord, I am a tenant. I rent. And I guess my landlord's my landlord. The lord of the land. What does a slumlord call his tenants? Slum? That's rude. I'm gonna get canceled. I'm gonna get canceled for calling my slumlords, my minions, slums. Call them minions? Minions do your bidding, though. Yeah. Change the battery pack. Video just died. Well, let's just wrap it. 23 minutes in. I haven't really eaten much today. I got this half-eaten peanut butter sandwich that Katie made for me today. I only ate half of it, and it's sitting on the dash. And she said I have to eat it before I eat my dinner. Like, she's my auntie. I'm not going to eat the sandwich. I'll eat it tomorrow. I'm not eating it tonight. But I'm going to eat some of this curry. Listen, guys. Next podcast, hopefully, if I remember, is going to be me and Katie wrapping up the summer, which would be fun. And then maybe after that, I'll do another solo, and then I'll get my brother in the mix. Maybe I'll get my parents on it. I don't know if they want to do it. They probably don't want to do it. I don't know. Do I want to interview my whole family on my podcast? I don't know. Get my sisters on here? I don't know. Well, could I say something funny? I don't know. I'm going to be a slumlord. That's the funniest thing I got for you. I'm going to be a slumlord. So stay tuned. And I'll advertise it on my podcast. If you want to be one of my slums, just give me a call, shoot me a text, DM me, whatever. All right, I'm going to go have dinner. Peace out, y'all. I told you I had no idea what that one was going to be about, but it was good. I liked it. We got it done. See you guys on the next one. For full episodes, get them on YouTube, get them on my website, Aaron Wayne Yoga, or any podcatcher that you're on. I don't know why I'm telling you that. You're already listening to the darn thing. Should I cuss on my podcast? Send me a message at Aaron Wayne Yoga on Instagram, or an email, hello@aaronwayneyoga.com. Posting the next one on Thursday. Peace out, y'all. Peace out, y'all. Peace out, y'all.